So today we're jumping into a really ambitious idea. A theory that says balance isn't just, a feeling. It's a universal, measurable constant, something that shapes everything, from galaxies all the way down to our own minds. And that is the big question behind what's known as Crippin's theory, which is all laid out in a framework called the Atlas Codex. I mean, this is a pretty bold attempt to connect the dots between geometry, physics, and even consciousness, all under one single unifying idea. So, at its core, the theory claims that balance isn't about being perfectly still or static. Instead, it's more like a dynamic rhythm, right? A constant give and take between forces. And they have a special name for this: reciprocity. And here's where it gets really interesting. Get this. They've actually boiled this whole idea of active balance down to a mathematical formula. So let's break this thing down. What do T, P, kappa, and R actually stand for? To make this a little less, out there, let's use an analogy. Imagine you're running a marathon. What's the goal? Not to just sprint, but to find that perfect, sustainable pace that gets you to the finish line. And that right there, that's the key to understanding this whole equation. Okay, first up is P for proportion. This is all about the optimal design or the structure of the system. In our marathon, think of it like your ideal stride length. It's the most efficient design for your body's movement. You see these kinds of efficient patterns all over nature, like in the golden ratio. All right, next we've got kappa. That's the Greek letter K, and it stands for phase. So if proportion was the design of your stride, phase is your pacing. It's that calibrated rhythm that keeps the whole system moving along smoothly in harmony over time. And that brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, R for resonance. This is all about sustained energy. It's kind of like the force that makes sure your perfect design, your proportion, and your perfect rhythm, your phase, actually lead to a stable, powerful output. It's what keeps your energy from just fizzling out or going totally haywire. Okay, so if this formula works for systems in general, the theory takes a really bold leap. It says, well, then it must apply to the most complex system we know of, right? The human mind. The idea here is that our minds actually use 4 fundamental geometric shapes, they call them primitives, to organize our internal experience. So it's literally linking geometry to how we think and feel. And what's really fascinating is how they map each of these shapes to a specific cognitive state, which we're about to see. Okay, check this out. According to this framework, the triangle, that represents clarity and direction, making a decision. The circle is all about connection, that sense of flow and continuity. The square, well, that's your stability, your structure, your boundaries. And the spiral embodies growth, learning, and putting it all together. It's like each shape is a fundamental tool in our mental toolbox for making sense of everything. And this is where it gets even bigger. This same geometric language, they say, scales up. It doesn't just stay in our heads, it moves out into the external world, into architecture, and to how we build our cities. The theory points to some of humanity's most iconic structures as like physical manifestations of the T equation. So you've got the pyramid with its perfect stable geometry, that's pure proportion. Then there's the ziggurat with its terraced steps, that's like a rhythm you can see, that's phase. And finally, the dome, which is literally designed to contain and harmonize sound, well, that's a perfect example of resonance. And this is a really crucial point. This isn't just about making things look cool. It's a much deeper idea. It's about a mission to design our entire environment in a way that creates harmony, not friction. But here's where the theory makes maybe its most surprising connection yet. It draws a line between the geometry we see in nature and a tool from a field you would never, ever expect: radio engineering. So on the left here, you see a pattern that's probably pretty familiar, the Fibonacci spiral. You see it in shells and sunflowers. It's basically the math of natural growth. And on the right, that's something called a Smith chart. Now, it looks incredibly complex, I know, but it's basically a kind of cheat sheet that radio engineers use to tune their signals perfectly. And here it is. This is the mind-blowing part. That Smith chart, it is literally a tool for solving our T equation. Engineers use it to find that perfect balance, that sweet spot between proportion and phase to get maximum resonance, but for radio waves, all to make sure that none of their signal's energy gets wasted. So the implication here is, well, it's pretty huge.
The claim is that the exact same math that stabilizes energy in an antenna could also be what stabilizes something like empathy in a person. That whether we're talking about radio waves or human consciousness, the fundamental math of a stable, coherent system might just be universal.
So, what this theory is really getting at is that balance isn't some static thing we achieve. It's an active, universal rhythm, which leaves us with a pretty deep thought to chew on, right? If time itself is a rhythm, what's the geometric pattern that defines the most resonant, the most balanced rhythm in your own life? It might just be worth looking for.